Welcome to the Learning Blueprint, Crafting Behavioral Change and L&D. This is the go-to podcast for leaders who are passionate about driving impactful learning and development initiatives within their organizations. Each episode, we will dive into the strategies, tools, and insights that can help you sculpt the future of workplace learning. So we want to look at how do we onboard individuals in the liquid workforce to reduce that 6 months to 1 year or 12 months to 18 months onboarding process. And so there's a lot of models out there for onboarding. One of the things I've always found is kind of wild and counterproductive to this idea of retention, this idea of motivation, is that we often lay out skills or trainings that people should attend at certain times. And in my opinion, it's often backwards, right? So when you first start a job, often you'll take hey, go look at the employee manual. You may have had a training professional take that manual and create some trainings for it, which, is going to be about your mission, vision, values, the services we offer, the history of our company, all that stuff. It's all great information. But that's the first thing people see. If you think about when you start a job, what do you care about? You took that job for you, not for the company, right? I understand that what's happening with that onboarding is that we're trying to align people to our stuff. But there's this thing that's happening. There's so much anxiety. There's new hires are self-centered, right? They just left something that they may have been comfortable with. They had some at least familiarity with to come to you. And that first day, they're like, I don't know. I have no idea if this is a good idea. And so the first thing we do is say, hey, this is us. And I think we're trying to say, this was a good idea for you. But if you don't know where they are, then that information kind of falls flat. So I always think that's something that happens when people get comfortable. Then you can kind of say, here's who we are, right? Certainly there's a place in the beginning where they learn something about who you are. But to do a full-on 8 hours of training of who we are, or even 3 hours of who we are, it doesn't sit. It doesn't land where it's supposed to land. And it's not helping them get to productivity. So there's a place for, I always say that when somebody starts, I coined this term and I always try to find a better term for it, but it's, I say that there's a light switch syndrome when somebody first starts a job. That, when you first buy a house, you don't know where any of the light switches are, right? And so doing the simple tasks like getting a glass of water at 9 o'clock at night becomes a really challenging task. Following the wall, hey, where's that light switch? It's very frustrating by the time you finally get a light on, then you can go get your water. That's happening in your organizations, right? People just got their seat. They don't know who's their coworker. They don't know what the culture is. They don't know if they're supposed to talk to people. And so the very beginning from onboarding, the first thing you should do for onboarding is get them acclimated, right? That is not so much about our vision that connect to our stuff, but here's where you are, here's where your supervisor is, who's this person sitting over there. So, there's a lot of different ways to do that, shadowing, whatever. Just really your first 2 days, you want people to get comfortable. So giving them their login, making that login to various software, making that as seamless as possible. Here's our training plan. Here's what you're going to be provided. Here's some things you give them something day one where they can get into the training and get comfortable with it and make it low effort, but that where you can do a little e-learning module on mission, vision, or something just to give them something to do on day one. But then for week one, what should be happening, what you really need to be thinking about as a learning professional is how do we get them to productivity in week one? The first question I ask is, what does productivity look like for week one? So often we think about what productivity looks like, full productivity looks like, but we never break it down in these various pieces. So what does productivity look like in week one? Depends on what the job is, but what you want to do is define that. At the end of week one, these are the things that we expect the new hire to be able to do. And then find tasks, activities, or learning experiences that require the least amount of training but creates impact, right? So, administrative professional, if you have somebody coming in and they're greeting people at the front desk, then maybe we do a training on welcoming in the front door, or the way we talk on the phone and how we answer the phone. And that's just a one example. But the idea is that you want to find tasks and activities that require the least amount of training so that you can hand it to them and say, hey, here, go do this. And then what you want to provide is enough training that gives them feedback. So that can be in the form of a mentor or somebody who's shadowing them or a supervisor, or it could be a little training program, a training module, or you sit with somebody and go to a training. You want to make this week one about their role and getting into that. That's going to build their confidence. That's going to help them feel acclimated. And it's also going to get them to productivity. So it's not just fluff. It's a real thing, right? So when we onboard people into my company, one of the things that we do is we look at where their skills currently are and give them a task for that. So if they're really strong in writing, I'm going to have them write a design doc. They're literally going to be writing, not a fake one we're going to use. And then I'm going to give feedback on that, coach them, and help them get to understanding of how that is, how we do that here in the organization. So week one is about finding the tasks and activity that require the least amount of training, creates impact in the organization. And then I always go out for the first month. So what's at the end of month one, what's productivity look like, right? So whatever you define what week one to be, what are the behaviors that they should be able to do at the end of the first month?
Looking to bring a real change to your team's learning and development? Then you need Legacy Learning Consulting. We're all about creating custom learning strategies that truly make a difference. Whether you're aiming to boost team performance or enhance leadership skills, we've got you covered. Dive into what we offer by visiting legacylearningconsultingllc.com. Start crafting your team's legacy in learning with us today. That's legacylearningconsultingllc.com. We can't wait to work with you. Schedule a time to discuss with Jason in the episode description below.
And then we want to, at the end of week one, start adding in those tasks and activity that require decisions. So you as a training professional or within the organization, we need to have something, the criteria of what success looks like for them. And then have a tolerance for error, right? So you certainly want to put somebody in a situation week two where it could bring the company down, right? But you do want them to start making decisions. Usually it's a build on whatever they were doing in week one. They're building on that. They're starting to have to make different decisions. Maybe instead of just receiving, to use the administrative professional example, instead of receiving people, we're starting to have them call out or take that next step where they got to do similar behaviors, but with different expectations, different complexities, and different decisions. So at the end of the first month, you should have added tasks and activities that require decisions, and created something that allows the organization to have the tolerance for the errors, that protects the organization and still builds confidence in this new hire. So after your first month, that's when you really want to kind of take the training wheels off, right? At this point, you should have done some of those mission, vision, values. Hey, what's your role? What are the things how do you contribute to the organization? Those things should have been sprinkled out throughout the first month. And then after that first month, you want to start finding tasks and activities that require independence, that they go do, they make decisions, and they're responsible for whatever happens at the end of that, right? So we had that tolerance for error in month one. At the end of month one, not that we're firing them if they don't do what is required within the training plan, but we then have the expectation now that they're going to be able to do the things that we expect them to do at the end of 3 months with, supervise it at that point. So we should have provided the training needed to get them there. And if we haven't, then certainly you can sprinkle some of those training opportunities within the first 3 months. So then you want to think about, okay, at the end of 6 months, what does productivity look like? So we did the week, we did month one, we did 3 months. Now we're looking at, in 6 months, what does that look like? And what that should look like is that we have added full-scale tasks and activities. By the way, I'm saying to add these tasks and activities. Of course, when you do that, you need to provide training of some sort capacity. Like as trained professionals, we're going to write this onboarding plan. We're going to say, hey, you're going to engage in this learning experience, and then you're going to meet with your supervisor or meet with a mentor. We're going to shadow somebody, whatever it is. We're going to spell all this out. But this is how you get to the things that you need to create, is looking at now, the first 6 months, the full-scale task or activities. So that is at the end of, where we typically think of full onboarding, 12 months, 18 months, or 6 months to a year. That's what we want to start adding in. So at the end of 6 months, what do we expect learners to, or new hires to be able to do? And start adding those task activities in with training support or whatever support is needed. Then you want to say at the end of this first year, here's where they should be. Usually, historically, what we have done is we do that first, right? We'll say this is what they should be doing. What we're suggesting, what we typically do, is at the end of that first year, you want to be adding things that are outside the scope of their initial role. That might be asking them to attend specific meetings within the organization, that are strategy meetings because of their lens or their expertise or whatever. Or it might be, hey, why don't we start cross-training you over here? So we're saying between that 6 months and 12-month period, you should start to be doing cross-training or succession planning, that kind of stuff. And that's significantly earlier than what you typically would see. Certainly, again, we're going to start the whole cycle over again where, okay, if we're asking them to do something new, then we're going to look at, okay, the first week they're trying this, what should that look like, right? But that 6 months to 1 year should not be the goal. It shouldn't be the goal that we get them onboarded. That's when we should be taking that next step. Now we have somebody who at the end of a year has done things within the organization that are way farther than what we originally set out if we just did the typical year onboarding, right? And what we find is when you do that, you increase the success and also improve retention because people now feel included in the organization faster and contribute faster. Thank you for tuning in to the Learning Blueprint, Crafting Behavioral Change in L&D. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and follow us on your preferred social media channels to continue the conversation and stay up to date on the latest trends, strategies, and success stories in L&D. Join us next time as we further explore the world of learning and development. Until then, keep forging pathways to meaningful behavioral change in your workplace. And don't hesitate to reach out via social media with your thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like to see us cover. Here's to shaping the future of your organization, one behavior at a time.